Okay. Welcome, everybody. I want to thank you all for attending once again today and participating both in person, and then we have some folks joining virtually. I have a little bit of a cold that I'm fighting, so pardon me if my voice gets kind of funny. I promise it's from grandchildren and nothing else. This is our third task force of 2024, and if it's your first time, I really want to thank you for joining and being with us here today. And as a reminder, these task force meetings are being recorded, as you already heard, and are publicly available through our website after the fact, shortly thereafter. I think it takes them a little bit of time to get it up, so be patient, but fairly shortly thereafter. So I'm Wendy Bucknam, and I'm a council member with the City of Mission Viejo. Assembly member Lori Davies and Orange County Supervisor Katrina Foley are all currently serving as, we serve as co-chairs of this. And we have sitting in for Katrina Foley, we have the amazing Nick, who's going to give us an update. So this task force has successfully brought stakeholders together and helped draw some significant attention to this issue. However, the reform we are seeking was never going to be easy or rapid. And I think many of us know that, especially those of you that are physically living through this. Today's meeting presents an opportunity for us to regroup and collaborate on some strategies moving forward, leveraging information that was gained in the process. And we do believe that the strength in numbers are continuing to build, and I think you're going to see some of that today, both online and with some of those that are visiting in person. So I always like to do a little bit of review by just restating our mission for those who are joining for the first time. And just as a good reminder, the California Sober Living and Recovery Task Force mission is to combine expert education and research, public input, and bipartisan regional ideas and initiatives to determine some critical pathways forwards for possible long-term and short-term solutions that help those in recovery, as well as the community members and the neighborhoods that have been impacted. So with that said, let's move forward to some updates from the County of Orange. So Nick, can you provide the group with an update on the county's initiative and progress, and take it away?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good seeing everyone again. Again, my name is Nick Annis. I'm Supervisor Foley's Chief of Staff. I have a brief update on our county-sponsored legislation, SB 1334. So, unfortunately, we decided with our author, Senator Newman, to pull the bill in April. We faced some challenges with the Senate Health Committee, and we, based on the climate, based on signals we received from Assembly Health and Senate Health, we decided it was better to pull it to work on the bill in the future as opposed to going down, if you will. It's clear that a wall went up, at least in my opinion, on any legislation. We all kind of got grouped together, called too aggressive, and based on that, we decided to pull back. As a reminder, SB 1334 would have allowed for a conditional use permit for currently unregulated recovery residencies of 7 or more, and added some spacing requirements. The Friday before the hearing, which was at the exact same time as this meeting, which is why I wasn't here, we received amendments from the committee consultant for the Senate Health Committee that I would deem not friendly, that would have probably actually added a license for recovery residencies, but no local regulations, and would have likely made them by right in our analysis, and didn't accept feedback on that. It was also significantly different than what the County Board of Supervisors approved. So, and we wouldn't have time to go back to the board before we move back forward. So for all those reasons, we decided to pull it as opposed to moving forward to find another day. I do echo, and I think Councilmember Bucknam will echo and agree that despite that, the issue is still growing and present statewide. When just at the end of last year, the city of Oakland actually sued an unlicensed operator. Their elected city attorney found that, let me back up. City of Oakland has strong eviction protection ordinances. They heard that maybe an apartment was evicting folks unlawfully per their ordinance. When their elected district attorney went to talk to the owners of that apartment building, they said, "Oh no, we don't follow those rules. We're a business." They closed the door. They weren't a business. They were being treated as a home. So City of Oakland sued those operators. And so the issue is still growing. Awareness is still increasing. Just the reality is that issues in Sacramento are still pervasive and we need more education, and we need to start hopefully getting folks outside of our Orange County delegation, which have been doing an amazing job, to join in this effort. So that's be part of our mission for this coming year and heading into next year.
I love
You have
that.
to answer any other questions or,
Yeah, thank you, Nick. And the work that you're doing is excellent. And you're right about what our mission should be and focus on as we go into this next year. So, good points. Does anybody have any questions for Nick? Any insight that you're looking for?
Just so you know, we spoke to opposition that has been opposing bills, across the last 7 years. And they opened with, do you know what your reputation is in Sacramento? And I said, if I had to guess, it's NIMBY. And if it's, and the person basically nodded. And I said, and if I had to guess, that's coming from the Senate and basically the Senate and Assembly staff. That's the group that's actually launching that effective smearing of our reputation. And the problem is, as Nick has found out, that they write the recommendations to the senators and the assembly members who will be voting on any bill. So as long as they stay stuck in that particular location, they will continue to write legislation against bills that are simply proposed, by Orange County.
Expand our reach.
Sure.
Nick, in your research and the work that you do, it's can kind of get kind of hairy as a gray area. Has anyone ever looked into how many of these assembly people, personnel, are actually invested? Because, like Laura says, it's been years. I've been dealing with this for a long time. I haven't seen any new laws that really puts the public into a balanced scale scenario. It's an unbalanced scale as far as these laws go. And I'm just throwing this out there. Are laws not being written because there's an invested interest in this industry? Or is it due to ignorance or just unwillingness to actually write laws for the public?
I would say traditionally, this has been an Orange County issue. We haven't seen the scale and the concentration of recovery residencies or sober living homes in other parts of the state. And so it gets perceived that we're exaggerating, even though we have a larger problem, right? Now that market is spreading across the state, and now you're seeing instances where you have insurance providers suing sober living homes for fraud. You have folks violating eviction protection ordinances in large cities because they are operating as a business, but claiming, but in a regulatory framework where no one regulates them. And now as we try to build our continuum of care at the county, which is getting people off the streets and into services, for our healthcare agency, the unregulated recovery residencies are a gap because we, if they're in a shelter, we can take care of them and, monitor them. If it's a county contract, which we have some contract providers, we can monitor them. Even if they're licensed, at least we know we're there. And then you have people falling out of the system as we're trying to get them into permanent supportive housing to be self-sufficient in these unregulated residencies. So it is a problem that hurts people in the system of care. And I think that's a message that kind of patient protection that has been effective, but it's gonna take time to educate folks on that. And now that we're seeing it in places like Los Angeles, the Bay Area, I think our hope is that we'll continue, be able to continue that education. Hopefully, staff, Lori, will, be educated a little bit, but we'll see.
I think we need term limits. We have to move forward. with something. No, maybe for you too, not for counties.
So but to that point and to the Orange County point, I want to introduce our next person who's going to just share a little bit and potentially has a few questions for us as well. And it's Mr. Tom Chisholm, with City Attorney with the City of Riverside. Welcome.
Well, hello, thanks for having me here today. So we've had sober living houses operating in Riverside for a long time, I'm sure decades, and we think we probably have ish there now. Most seem to work well. We have a pretty innocuous ordinance, and we require people to belong to the Sober Living Network or another affiliated agency. So it's I would say the rare ones that cause a problem. If we have a bad operator, they bring a crime wave, then we'll find out about it. So the reason here, we just had a big house come up for sale. Kind of struck me like the Grandma's House for Hope caper in Anaheim, but we had a judge retired, sold their house, so they had a big 5-bedroom house, and a sober living provider bought it, and they're gonna put maybe 20-ish people in there. So the neighbors are all up in arms. They complained to city council. So we just had a workshop Tuesday night with the city council to talk about what sober living houses are, what state licensed facilities are, some of the issues, and what we can do and what other places can do. This particular provider is called the House of Courage in Riverside. They have 3 other facilities, and they've been working, some 8 or 10 years old, and they've been running well. So I imagine this one won't be a problem after the initial shock of it going in.
You don't
Yes.
have any city standards for 7 or more, 6 or under. Most cities have a definition that if you have 7 or more people, adults, unrelated adults occupying the property, you have to acquire a conditional use permit.
Not for the sober living facilities, so they under our ordinance. So
It would be for any, this is an unlicensed residence, am I
Yep.
correct?
Mhm.
So it qualifies as a family. And so the state court cases basically define that if it's 7 or more unrelated people, it can be considered for a conditional use permit because it doesn't qualify as a family. A family is 6 or under.
all right, we read that the other way. So if I go back to the Santa Barbara versus Adamson case, we know back from 1980, unrelated people can live together as a family. And that's the guidance we've been following. We've also been kind of following HCD's guidance from their technical advisory in 2024. I'm sorry, December 2022. So we haven't had any legal fights with anybody recently, so we're trying to avoid that if possible. The question I did want to bring up, so a couple of places we did have problems with were a state licensed rehab, so six and under licensed. Situation we've run into on 2 different occasions is the provider would get a contract with corrections, Department of Corrections, and they'd put 6 290s in there, or sex offenders straight out of state prison, into this treatment facility. Not saying that they didn't need to be there, but they go in there, then the neighbors look on Megan's Law, and all of a sudden, oh my God, I've got 6 sex offenders living right next door. What can we do about that? So I try to see what we could do on our side. I talked to people at Department of Healthcare Services. I put in a complaint. I finally got an answer back, and they said, "Oh, that's not our jurisdiction." And we worked with our local Senator Roth back. This was a couple of years ago, and his staff was looking at it, but it seemed like it'd have to be something taken care of from a political side. So
Karen Quirk Silva passed the bill, I thought it was 2 years ago, that was to move people out of prison into recovery housing. So she would be the person to talk to about a bill to recognize that there might be some issue with that.
Yeah, so I don't have any horror stories to share with you. It shocked the neighbors. So that was the situation. Something else we were looking at in Riverside is possibly for the sober living providers. We currently don't require them to have a business license, or business tax certificate, what we call it. I didn't know what any of the other local jurisdictions down here were doing. From one point of view is they would be running a business out of the house. It's kind of a room rental, so it's neutral. We're not picking on a protected class or anything else. It's just a business running out of the house, and any other home business in our city would require a business tax license.
So, I will note that our city does not have a business license. And we found that we could not require a business license for them specifically because we didn't require a business license for the rest. However, so that in a reverse scenario would lend me to think that if we did require a business license for all, that they would be looped into that. That is my understanding, based on what our city attorney has shared, and he may be online. Bill, are you online? Still, no, he's not. Yeah. Okay, but I will open it up to those around the room that if you want to share what's happening in your cities or the knowledge we know.
Well, we passed, in Patrick Harbor, Fountain Valley, we passed an ordinance, in January, February this year. Basically copied the same ordinance that Costa Mesa has in place, and we're in the implementation phase right now. So we send letters to all the homes that we know that are operating, asking to fill out an application. And I think they're due June 30th. And then after that, we'll work with them to try to come in compliance with the ordinance. So far, so good.
You haven't gotten any pushback or served with any lawsuits? That's nice. That's good. Anybody else? Chris, are you aware of anything? Chris with Association California Cities. Are you aware of
any.
a business license and
It
that?
really seems to vary by jurisdiction that we've discovered at this point, so. And that seems to be a response to impact.
Anybody online want to answer that question from the cities?
I'll just share Jay from Costa Mesa here. I'll
Oh,
give
thank
you
Jay.
my card, Tom, and I'll connect you with our city attorney and our outside counsel, but we do business license for facilities too, so I can share that and you can talk to them about how we enforce it. City has had litigation, obviously.
Yes,
You all
I know. I apologize, Jay.
That's okay. I figured you all know already. It's
Yes.
Have you had any state litigation, or has it all been federal?
all been federal, I believe.
Yes, okay.
But we did get the HCD, same kind of letter that I think maybe everybody else got about not continuing to enforce this ordinance.
Anybody else? Well, that gives you a little bit of input, and we can put that question out to our city attorney, and we can that Bill Curley, who is city attorney for Mission Viejo, and we'll have him share some information with you. Okay, because he's done research. Lori, did you want to say something? I'm sorry.
Some cities have implemented rulings against short-term rentals. Yeah, that's been a tactic. If people are, if you're cycling people through rooms, according to older laws, these are boarding houses. They're not businesses, they're boarding houses.
And having more than 3 people on a lease, another angle.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you coming this way. And you're welcome to join us, and you certainly don't have to drive here. You can join us online. And any of our colleagues, we're actually going to be, we're talking about how to introduce this to our Southern California Association of Governments, and just get, for outreach purposes. So some of your council members may hear about it in the upcoming months. So thank you. So now, speaking of Chris Murray, I'd like to have you update the group on the status of the proposed transition of our task force that's been functioning under the city of Mission Viejo for the past roughly 2 years. And give us get an idea of where things are with the transition to the Association California Cities, Orange County.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you to Supervisor Foley and you, Nick, for hosting us here. ACCOC, for those who may not be aware, is a nonprofit formed by cities in Orange County in 2011. We represent the cities of Orange County as well as more than 50 affiliate members, which are also public agencies, universities, our large employers, other nonprofits and NGOs in Orange County, really to create a collective voice for Orange County at all levels of government, also to do educational programming, advocacy, and communications on behalf of our city officials and communities in Orange County. We were approached about, as this task force was seeking to grow, and it has been growing beyond one city that was led by Mission Viejo to a countywide task force, now to a statewide task force. We were approached about assisting in an oversight capacity to help with finances, invoicing, auditing, taxes, those kinds of things, to just provide that sort of a structure to it that would give confidence for other cities and other entities to invest and allow it to achieve growth successfully. So our board was approached. Jeff Corliss came and spoke. Our board, and I also want to acknowledge Councilman Harper from Fountain Valley, who's a past board member but current chair of ACCOC's Transportation Committee. The board listened and is very interested in assisting. One of the things they asked for, which is made up of elected officials across the county, was that the task force be established as its own nonprofit entity. And basically ACCOC will contract with that entity to provide those oversight services. So that way the task force has its own legal parameters, structure, and capabilities. So we're in the process of doing all of that. I want to thank Mr. Curley, who he may be on at some point, but Wendy, your team, Dennis, Wilberg, and the entire team at Mission Viejo have been assisting with getting those filings going for them. A lot of our board members will also serve on that board just to provide some continuity between the two organizations. But once that filing gets set up, then we can proceed in setting up a bank account and invoicing cities and others who would like to participate in helping this grow. A big part of what that's going to, as Nick mentioned earlier, there's just a real, and you all know this being on the front lines better than anyone, but there's just a real lack of understanding that this truly is a patient's rights issue, that people are being abused in these facilities. It's just happens to be that that abuse is happening within neighborhoods. So yes, residents are upset and concerned as all of the crime that our sheriff's department has been tracking that's associated with that. But the crux of it is people are being abused in these facilities, and we really have to help develop the data so it's not just anecdotal, but we can go up there with hard data and show the legislative staff and the members that this is happening in communities statewide. So that'll be the effort that we will try to assist with. Again, we're kind of flying the aircraft or building it as we try to fly it. So we're open to suggestions. This is really grassroots happening now. Any issues that, you as task force members that kickstarted and founded this effort would like to raise, please do. I'm the executive director. I'm available at any time. My information is on our website at accoc.org. You can also look at all of our other programming and the work that we do as a nonprofit. Connor Medina may be on from the League of Cities. We are different organizations. ACCOC represents Orange County at a local, regional, state, and federal. The League of Cities is a statewide organization, and our division here in Orange County is managed by Connor Medina. We work very closely together. We both represent cities, but from different perspectives and missions and objectives. But we work very closely together, and they're going to be engaged as well in helping us grow this from a statewide capacity. And with that, I can answer any questions you all might have.
So will this become an ACCOC program, or will it be a separate?
It'll be its own entity, but we'll provide basically managerial oversight, accounting, auditing as a service in a contracted capacity to the nonprofit.
So we'll still have a separate identity.
Yes.
It'll be its own legal nonprofit entity.
But in, I don't know, 2018, 17, 18, there was a very strong push with ACCOC. And Larry Davis headed the committee, and it just basically fell apart. And in trying to keep that going, pushback we got locally was that there was a political bias at ACCOC side of the, and therefore some of the council people objected to being involved. So I just want to make sure, separate entity, hopefully we can, whatever that perceived bias is, we can stay separate from it.
Well, it was Orange County.
Pardon?
That was the issue. It was Orange County.
No, it was not Orange County versus, it was Republican versus Democrat.
Oh, okay. I was on then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
want to
isn't
underscore
why.
ACCOC is not a political organization.
So that's the pushback we got from our city council.
Okay,
I can tell
interesting.
you. That was the perception, just as we're perceived as NIMBYs, that was the perception, so.
Hopefully, we're doing a lot to refute and.
Well, I mean, I think my
labels.
opening statement about this whole issue being bipartisan and that Chris's statement that it's going to still be a separate nonprofit clears that up.
No, I'm not, that's
Yeah.
why I'm glad that,
Yeah.
I want to make
There's
sure.
also been a lot of transition since then. ACCOC had some leadership changes, and then also the pandemic, everything kind of got very quiet.
That was 6 years ago.
Lots changed.
I just want to add, I mean, this is a bipartisan group at the table, and I appreciate Wendy, Jeff, Chris, of trying to create a structure that makes it sustainable, because often individual elected officials will have their own groups that will be inherently temporary, kind of ad hoc, and then kind of ebbs and flows. So by creating the structure and the continuity, I think that's what's gonna make it sustainable, so we don't look back and like, hey, remember when we used to meet around those tables a few years ago? Who was in charge of that? Because, you know, we're all elected officials come and go, right? So we need to keep it organized. I really appreciate it.
And I don't want to refute that. I do think there's been perception of ACCOC having a conservative tenor to it in the past, but I can absolutely assure you there is zero political engagement in the organization today.
But keeping it separate will, yes.
We are nonpartisan across the board.
Yes.
Chris, I love hearing that about the data gathering and data to help with the education push, which it sounds like that's really what this group is focused on. I was just wondering when you could present kind of scope or timelines and how you would go about that.
And we're going to continue to work with Venture Strategic. They're going to continue to provide the staffing and that level of day-to-day, but we're assisting, our team will be assisting with research and development. We're going to continue to work with the Sheriff's Department because that's the hard data on what's happening to the folks inside these homes as well as the communities around them.
And I think there's also really an angle to what Nick talked about, which is what the counties are really focused on is helping, move people through these systems to supportive housing. And I'm wondering if homeless outreach coordinators in each city is a good place to tap into, because I know very few of these people are ending up in these homes. So yeah.
The other, I mean, there's statewide organizations in addition to the League of Cities, the CSAC, which, because the counties really are in the driver's seat on funneling all of the state and federal health and human services funding that comes to our communities. And they have, the counties statewide. CSAC is the California Association of Counties. Yeah. Thank you. I was like, I know it stands for Association of Counties. But that's another organization we can tap into because they're tracking what's happening with that funding for healthcare dollars and where those bad actors are.
just briefly dovetail, and these are very initial and formal conversations internally, but looking at things like our EMS procedures, we're looking at communicating with the hospital system on discharge policies, a lot of places where folks come from. So we're trying to tackle it from the health and human services angle, and we're hoping to find a way to capture that data, which is difficult to capture, you know.
But so critical
Yeah,
for this
critical.
movement.
I mean, honestly, this task force is one of the only entities out there that is tracking it. So hopefully what we are creating, we can truly make it go regionally,
Leverage statewide,
statewide. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is just move on to some updates regarding our state legislative initiatives and really discussion of the various approaches and strategies that we are each taking as individual offices and jurisdictions moving forward. So to that end, it's important to note that this task force is not an independent legislative body taking action on behalf of all of its members. This is a place for coordination, collaboration, sharing information, and really growing support, not just in Orange County, but beyond. So members may ultimately take different approaches based on what makes most sense for them and their constituents, and we respect that process. And with that said, I'd like to begin with a few quick updates from Jeff Corliss, and then we'll hear from Corey Takayan with Townsend Public Affairs.
And Lisa will be standing in for her today.
Oh, excellent.
Providing an update.
Okay.
So as directed by you, Chair Bucknam, the task force has formed several ad hocs, not the least of which is legislative strategy ad hoc. That ad hoc met on May 30th with Chris Murray from ACCOC, as well as Larry Durand was there, Kim Carr from Senator Blakespeare's office, Townsend Public Affairs, Peter and myself from our team. The discussion largely centered around updates on bills that were in the legislature that died, as well as currently active bills. And I'll let Elisa provide an update on those. The discussion around how you move forward is very much aligned with what you heard from Supervisor Foley's Chief of Staff, Nick Annis, regarding messaging that primarily focuses on. Yes, they can hear me through the microphones.
I just want to make sure.
Absolutely. And focusing on patient safety and responsible treatment, and that must be at the center of legislation that's introduced in the new legislative session in 2025. And everyone, I think there's a great consensus around that. We want to thank Lori Duran for submitting some great legislative proposals that can be distributed through this group to the various city and county participants for consideration, as well as our participating state legislators for ideas for the next legislative session. And you have some representatives here from the individual offices, such as Cooper Stroll from Assemblymember Dixon's office, and I believe maybe some other offices, and we'll call upon them that are here virtually. In addition to that, there is also the workings of a local ordinance draft that will begin this summer. And largely, Bill Curley has led that effort, and we're now going to work with ACCOC. And one of the great advantages of ACCOC providing oversight of the task force going forward is the committee structure that it has to collaborate with its city partners and partners at all levels to vet language that cities might consider and commonly accept over the course of time. So that was largely the discussion. And of course, last but not least, and I know Assemblymember Dixon's office will have an update on the audit. Well, we anticipate that coming out in the fall, and Cooper may have some more details on that. There will be things in there that hopefully support reform. And there may be other things that, are considered by multiple jurisdictions that are unrelated to this. That was a very robust discussion, and again, well, we have a membership ad hoc that we certainly welcome members to participate in that are here, and a couple of others. Our focus in the last half of the year is widening participation in other counties and cities across the state, as well as engaging CSAC as we're finalizing the transition of oversight to ACCOC.
Thank you. Everybody catch that? maybe it's me, but I feel like you're
Sounding a little.
just
muffled,
spoken a little bit, but it's okay. Just want to make sure everybody can
so
hear.
relax.
Yes, so Lisa, if you can, from Townsend Public Affairs, if you can give us an update, because I know you're tracking for City of Mission Viejo, but also Newport Beach. And maybe some other cities as well.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. So I think we noted at the last couple of meetings that there were obviously several bills that were introduced in this space this year, and we have dwindled it down to just 2 measures left for going into the end of session. And the first of that is AB 2574 by Assemblymember Valencia. And then we've got AB 2081 by Assemblymember Davies. So this is very clearly a bipartisan issue. We've got an author on either side of the aisle on this issue, and both of these surround really increasing disclosure for the community. I want to make sure the community is invested in what's going on in these sober living facilities, and that they're aware of, you know, what is working and what is not. So those are the 2 that we have left alive this year. I know that you noted that Assemblymember Davies' office will get a little bit further into the details of the audit. We are, of course, very supportive of that as well, very interested in hearing the results that come from that, and that will, of course, dictate our next move going into this next 2-year session at the top of the year. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for her? I'm gonna have Cooper dive into the update on the audit, if not.
I wanted to mention another bill that we really do need to be on top of, which is AB 2893 that is now in the Senate. It is at a minimum badly written and will have significant impact on recovery housing. Ostensibly, it is attempting to move the homeless into some form, homeless and addicted into some form of, I'll call it pre-recovery housing, but it's being advertised as recovery housing. So it's not actually recovery housing. And there's a lot of reasons to oppose it that have to do with the fact that it's enormously ambiguous bill and is very sloppy in terms of how it approaches the health code. So that's AB 2893, and pretty much everybody should know about it. And it's in the Senate already. It's in housing and healthcare right now.
Thank you. Cooper.
All right. Hello, everyone. Cooper Stroll with Assemblymember Diane Dixon's office. I'll just provide a quick update on what Jeff touched on a little bit. So I know we have some new members of the group. So Assemblymember Dixon submitted a audit request to the Joint Legislative Audit Committee in May of 2023. And the audit is about DHCS and how they audit or how they regulate and license all their facilities. So for those of you who have been around a while, you may recall there was a little bit of a snafu with the staffing on the audit itself. Things are back to normal now, full speed ahead. We've been told it'll be done in fall of 2024. We don't have an exact month or week or anything yet, but when we're a few weeks out from that deadline, we should be told, and we'll make sure you guys all get that update. For those of you who are new, if you have any questions about the audit or what the scope of it is, be happy to provide those details.
Thank you. And then do we have some,
Yes,
Say,
we
Rep-
have Carolyn Grinder with the Health and
okay,
League of City.
excellent.
Hi,
Caroline, would you like-
everybody.
Please, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I don't have too much to add. You know, I think Lisa covered our sponsored bills. I'm definitely still happy to see AB 2081 and AB 2574 continuing to move through the legislative process. At the same time, you know, we fought really hard for SB 913 this year. Took some blows in committee from some pretty intense opposition to that proposal. And, you know, unfortunately, while it sailed through committee with no votes, it did die on the suspense file in appropriations. And I think that, you know, it was well covered in the OC Register, but I think that they really highlighted, you know, that this is not a surprise. And, you know, this just continues on, you know, what we've been hearing from all of you, that, you know, there's a real hesitancy to move some serious reforms forward. So definitely disappointed that that bill is no longer moving. But, you know, absolutely looking forward to seeing the results of the audit. And we've committed to the OC lawmakers that we've been working with this year that we'd like to sponsor legislation again next year and be heavily involved again next year in any legislation that results out of that audit. So definitely continue to expect us to be engaged, and we'll continue to fight to move those two bills forward this year, but also are thinking ahead already about next year and what we can do in this space. So that's it for me. Happy to answer any questions, and I'll be on the rest of the call if there's anything else that comes up.
Anybody else?
No other speakers online at this time.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you to the California League of Cities, because they're representing from a statewide standpoint, which is to the point of what we just discussed earlier, is going to be very important, that it's not just Orange County. So that's a good start. Unfortunately, unfortunately their bill that they were pushing forward as well did not make it, but they'll continue to advocate for the two that are left alive.
I have a question on those two bills. Does anybody know the timeline around how they're progressing? I heard maybe 2081, they're gonna wait till the fall, or what? I'm not familiar with the exact timeline of these bills and when one will know whether they pass or not.
I'll let Lisa speak to that.
I'll actually let Caroline take it away.
We're old
Caroline?
colleagues, Elisa and I, so it's great to see you, Annalisa. It's very nice to be working with you again. No, I can just answer quickly. So they were both heard in the Senate Health Committee earlier this week. AB 2574 passed out of committee on consent, and then AB 2081 also passed with no votes. We can expect them to be heard in appropriations, over the next, well, there's an upcoming deadline, at least I think in like mid-August, right, for fiscal bills, and then it'll head to the floor from there. It'll have to be passed, by the end of session, obviously, at the end of August. So my understanding in talking to the authors' offices on both of those is they're planning on continuing to move full speed ahead through the end of this year and try to get those bills across the finish line. Haven't gotten an indication that there's any interest in, parking those, and we haven't received any, really hard pushback on either as they've moved through.
Well, thank you for all the hard work on this and bringing the information to the group today. So we will be sharing suggested reforms and ideas discussed in our most recent legislative ad hoc committee. So please be on the lookout for that communication that'll come out through via email
Yes.
or on the website.
Through our task force communications emails, and it will be posted on the website.
So be looking for that. Okay, next up, we're going to get a law enforcement update. Is that coming from you, or is Jeff doing it?
Just a couple of quick comments from me, and then.
Okay, so he's going to pass it off to you.
Thank you, Chair Bucknam. Several updates for you regarding law enforcement. Many in this room know Captain Chris McDonald, who previously was the Chief of Police Services in the city of Mission Viejo. His new assignment is overseeing the Real-Time Crime Center, which he announced, I believe, at his last meeting, that he would be taking on that assignment. That is, in my conversations with Sheriff Barnes' Chief of Staff, Ray Grangoff, is going to be a new resource for us in terms of accessing crime data around the county that relates to the work of this task force and the data collection effort that's currently underway. I do want to thank Supervisor Foley's office, as they are assisting us with capturing information and engaging some of the city partners in the 5th District and other parts of the county so that we can layer on the city's data from the police departments that are not run by the Sheriff's
Right,
Department.
so Costa Mesa, Newport Beach,
Correct.
Laguna Beach, there's many.
There are
So
many
that's going to be important data.
community. So thank you, Supervisor Foley, for your assistance with that. And one thing that Ray suggested, and he'll work with us on, is to have some representatives from the task force present to the Police Chiefs and Sheriffs Association, provide them with an update on the task force. So we'll work to get that scheduled. And then lastly, one of the things that this collaboration on gathering the data countywide is focused on is uniformity of data collection with the cities. I'll let Captain Ivins, your recently appointed police chief with the Sheriff's Department, talk a little bit about some of the challenges with pulling data. But we have some time as we're preparing for the 2025 legislative session and putting that data together.
Captain Ivins.
Yeah, so like we talked about, it's very difficult to gather accurate data regarding sober living homes, especially the unlicensed ones in the county. working with other police agencies, we're gonna need to be more involved in that. As far as capturing data from the sheriff's department, not so hard. I'm working on a mapping process, program with our new Peregrine application we have, and that can accurately pin map where locations that we've identified as sober living homes, whether licensed or unlicensed. And it's all based on our CAD system. Now, we feed into a bunch of different systems, CAD, NIBRS, UCR, and a lot of them don't talk to each other, but being able to scrub information from the CAD, I should be able to populate Peregrine mapping. It's like an ArcGIS type map to accurately show us where the locations are, at least in the sheriff's department jurisdictions. And I'm more than willing, whoever we bring on from outside agencies and police departments, to work with them in order to get their locations accurately mapped. So at least we know a number. We have a number we can work with. You know, I worked in behavioral health for a few years before that, and there's a lot of overlap in crisis response, mental health crisis response, homelessness, substance abuse. And I worked really closely with like BWLOC and some of the other, you know, substance abuse collaboratives. Behavioral Health Advisory Board is one of them. And we don't talk about sober living homes so much, but obviously people are coming and going out of these homes and onto the streets. So if we can capture those numbers too, I think it'll help them forward at least. So.
Thank you.
What are the parameters you use? Is it calls, response to call data that goes into?
Correct. Now, when the deputies arrive at calls, they will update in their narrative on the computer what they're responding to. And it's very easy to just keyword search those calls for service. We do have a way of dispoing calls, and we did this a few years ago to kind of track mental health and homeless related calls, where the deputies have to check a box before they can even leave their call, whether it's mental health, homeless, or both. It wouldn't be too hard to add another box to that for substance abuse.
Terrific.
Very good.
Anybody have any questions? Well, we look forward to the progress on that, and and anytime we need to speak before Jeff, because we've been invited by Sheriff Don Barnes and speaking to
The police chiefs.
I'm happy to go or
Yeah, we'll
join you or whatever we
we're gonna
need.
work with you to prepare for that meeting.
Okay,
Scheduled.
that's promising.
Recommendation.
I think it would be helpful to have all of the independent city police departments also assist or have some kind of collection of data, just so that we get that comprehensive data. How best to approach all of those, but.
Is that part of what Ray was mentioning?
That is, and we talked about uniformity in the data collection because you have
Yeah.
police departments in those cities that are not sheriff contract
Right.
cities or unincorporated areas that are collecting data. Although some of the systems are very similar, but to have uniformity on the variables that are being collected, which, you know, is what they've been looking at, because sometimes it's hard to exactly pinpoint a call and directly tie it to sober living. You have to do a little more investigation.
Yeah.
To make sure that it actually was a sober living home related call.
Mhm.
And they found a way to, I think, do that, which is what you saw in some of the initial data that was presented by Captain McDonald months ago.
Yes.
And so now asking other jurisdictions to pull the same parameters so that we can use that data in communications going forward to really underscore the problem. Yeah.
Are you looking to track locations or incidents or both?
Both.
Okay. Well, like I said, we have a business license requirement, so I could easily from planning services get your locations, but
Yeah.
incidents I'll have to reach out to our police chief. So.
Yeah, we'll help.
Terrific. Thank you.
Types of incidents or just incidents? You know, so curbing.
I think you want incidents.
Incidents is because it could be just a disturbance call. It could come out as a disturbance call. Until we investigate it, we don't know. It could be related to a sober living house. It could be, you know,
But so would it be, you know, curbing? Would you pick up on curbing, for example, or?
not familiar with curbing.
When they just kick somebody
No.
out.
When they kick them out.
When you kick them out of the home. They've heard that term before.
That's
Yeah.
their term, sadly, that they curb them.
Yeah, it would be, that would be captured.
Thank you. So just really quickly before we close today, I want to follow up on the voluntary assignment that I challenged everyone at the end of our last meeting. And that's inviting a new jurisdiction, which we've gotten, Riverside, thank you, to participate. And this is perhaps the most important activity, as Chris mentioned, and as well as Nick, that we can be doing between now and our next legislative cycle. And to ultimately gain the support that we need for really advancing some meaningful reform that isn't just associated with Orange County, but really it's a larger geographic footprint. And also naturally, we already talked about, we need to have the political diversity too, which we're there. We just need to expand that out of OC. So just some key actions that perhaps I could suggest. So we're looking for more testimony specifically from patients, families of patients, and families who've been victimized by sober living homes that are not providing responsible treatment and putting patients in really dangerous situations. Another idea, share your ideas with the group through the website and email for potential legislative reforms. We welcome that. I know Lori is very good about that, but we want to make sure we are capturing everybody. And I know you all are thinking about things as you've seen them. So submit those, you voice them. But if you talk to other people and share with them the website and say, put your ideas in, connect. And then invite a jurisdiction, a mayor, a city council member, county supervisor, or other stakeholder who you think might benefit from or contribute to the task force as it aims to really kind of grow our coalition for total reform. So our next meeting is tentatively scheduled for the August 15th, which is a Thursday. So we're trying to go between Thursdays and Fridays just to try to capture different schedules. So my request is that you invite a new participant, an elected official, and this can be online or here. Parking is easy here at the county. I know many of you that maybe haven't visited the county over the years, you might not know, but it's so much easier. And it's convenient, and we're again, thank you to Supervisor Foley's office for really making this happen, so that we have a consistent place to meet. So with that, we're concluding the meeting. And of course, you can stick around and tie up any connections or thoughts that you had with anybody that's here. And we thank everybody for coming. So thank you. Thanks everybody online.
Thank you, everybody. Do it.
Souvenir.
I go to get my hot tea for my first.